So, I mean, obviously, public speaking is important. You guys all know this. 70% of Americans believe that these skills are critical to their jobs. 65% of recruiters say that it's more important to be a good public speaker than it is to have some kind of stupid degree and whatever. And 75%, three quarters of people definitely have anxiety about public speaking. So, these are just some basic statistics and metrics that just show the importance of this and really show that it's something that a lot of people struggle with. So if you're able to overcome that, it really does set you apart from the rest of the competition, and it just makes you seem like you really know what you're talking about, which is always what kind of the end goal in mind.
So just to kind of talk more about what Mason said, obviously we all know that public speaking is important. So the whole point of this slide was kind of to give you guys a little bit of a demonstration of what a good presentation is. So one huge thing I want to highlight is that Mason didn't read what was on the slide. Obviously, he touched upon the big points. He touched upon the percentages, but he didn't specifically read it. And that's something that a lot of people get in the habit of that can be really detrimental to your performance. Instead, it's really good to do exactly what he did, which is summarize it, touch on the main ideas without actually reading it. Because number one, it's robotic and nobody likes it. But number two, what the hell is the point of a PowerPoint and the person if the person is just going to read it off the PowerPoint? It's really good to make sure that you're enhancing the PowerPoint and that the PowerPoint is enhancing what you're saying. And I think that's something Mason did a really good job on. And that's why we wanted to include this slide in the first place.
Yeah, definitely just kind of, paraphrasing is your best friend here. The judges can read what you guys put on the slides. They don't want to hear it twice. So you're just trying to summarize what the text says into a more digestible little piece that the judges / whoever you're presenting to can understand.
So obviously we all know that these skills are necessary, but I want to speak a little bit about when specifically. So the biggest thing obviously is interviews. Anytime you have an interview, you can always assume that there's going to be some kind of conversation, and that conversation requires specific public speaking skills, even if it's in a more intimate environment. So being able to successfully articulate yourself will give you a much, much, much better shot of moving on to the next round of the interview or scoring that job. And obviously, I don't even need to talk about presentations because that's why you guys are all here. A quality presentation will do an incredible job of really bringing the understanding and the audience's, amazement and excitement about the material to the next level. Like Mason said before, this is more informal, but we were on the same team for TechX and we finished second instead of first. And the reason why is because the team that beat us did an incredible job with the transitions, with the public speaking aspect and the presentation overall. And it's so key. And that could be the difference between winning and losing the competition. Obviously, communication, whether that's interpersonal, in a group, any kind of presentation and public speaking skill is so crucial for it. And obviously speeches, any politician, any person. I spoke at my high school graduation. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't do a good job. But if I went to this workshop, who knows what would have happened. But just being able to motivate your audience and really bring them in with what you're saying is huge.
Yeah, there's obviously just a lot of reasons that public speaking is important. You guys know this, but it's important really to just kind of know the topic at hand, and that alone just makes the whole job easier, I guess. Like it really is clear, especially like this is my first year ever being a judge. So like last year it was also intimidating and new, and we were just strictly on Zoom, and that just made everything like 10 times harder and way more annoying and complicated. So you guys are definitely at a little bit of an advantage that you guys can just hit the ground running with like these in-person presentations and just trying to get this, like trying to just knock this like fear and anxiety just out of the way before it even has a chance to be a problem. So that's kind of just the main goal with this. You guys know when you're going to use it, but it's obviously just there to show you. So the best way to learn really is kind of by doing. So, every time you have the opportunity to speak in front of people, present, take the lead on a presentation, there's plenty of practices that you can do that will help you. Something that I really like doing is meeting with my group or practicing in front of a mirror. Just literally just speak, just like try and run through your lines, try and make it sound good, try and make it flow. If you can't understand what you're saying and you're constantly getting lost, then like think about it from the perspective of someone that isn't you and doesn't know what you're kind of shooting for to begin with. That just makes it 10 times harder for them to really get what you're going for. And, obviously constructive criticism is great in any regards, but when people, especially the judges, like these are really smart people, they really know what they're talking about and they have years of experience. much more than I do. So listen to them. They have given me so much more like individual kind of critiques and little individual things that like I need to work on to make myself better at presenting. But yeah, just the more that you guys do this, the more case competitions you sign up for, the more, roles or committee positions or e-board that you try and just get active in, it'll come naturally. It really will.
Just to talk a little bit more about the constructive criticism, one big thing that me and Mason did was we really relied on our mentor. What happened was he made himself available, and we're also going to do the same. I think all of MCG will, and you guys have your own, I'm assuming, upperclassmen, friends, and mentors. So really taking advantage of that. We're going to drop our emails. Email us if you have a question. What we would do is we had a mentor named Mark. He would sit and for hours, not even joking, hours, he would just listen to us present and present and present. And at the beginning, it was really redundant and boring, but he would give really, really, sometimes pretty harsh criticism. And that's what took us from a team that was a group of freshmen that had no idea what the hell we were doing to a team that won Dean's Case and finished second overall in TechX. It was just that repetition, practicing in front of peers who were in SOM, out of SOM, even my parents sometimes, and really taking the criticism to heart, but also reaching out in order to get that criticism.
Yeah, definitely agree. These are all just big points that just really will propel you guys. If you want to take this one.
So obviously one of the stupidest things and worst things you could do is just show up uneducated, show up stupid. We're judges now. Even we, with our very little qualifications, can tell when you really know the material and when you own it and make it your own, and when you're just BSing it and you don't actually know what you're talking about. And if we could figure it out, then any seasoned judge will either. So obviously the first and most important thing to do is just really research a topic of the case. Number one, it'll actually allow you to prepare the material better and come up with better recommendations and better problems. But you'll also be able to speak more confidently when you present, and you're really going to own the material. I'm going to keep saying that because I want you guys to understand. I want you to own the material. You're all in SOM, or you're all doing this competition for a reason, and it's because you're all qualified. And as a result, act like it. And the best way you could do it is just building up your confidence. And the best way to do that is just with the research. You also want to find attention-grabbing facts, have an engaging tone. I'm sure you guys have noticed, but we're not talking like this. We're not being robotic. We're not reading off the screen. We're excited about this. We've actually been looking forward to this. And hopefully you guys can see that excitement rubbing off a little bit in our tone. Doing that will engage the audience. It'll keep them interested in the topic. It's huge. And this is on the side, but just eye contact. It's harder with Zoom, but eye contact, not fidgeting. The tone obviously is really important. There are so many things you could do to really focus on keeping the audience engaged, and doing research is just one of the best ways to do it. And you want to cite reliable sources. We could tell when you're making up stats. We could tell when something's completely false, especially with the financials. You don't even want to, some of the financials we've seen aren't the greatest.
No, they'll be working on that. That'll be good. But yeah, also just another quick little like tip, like when you're going through your presentation, like mention your appendix, like talk about it, like as if it's like your little baby that you want to show off to the judges. Because like, if you can say like, oh yeah, like, our plan for Subway is to get, vegan foods out there, right? And if you look at our appendix slide B, we have a very recent statistic on vegan trends. That just makes your whole topic, it just makes your whole point like that much more believable. And even if it isn't like necessarily the most solid connection, the fact that you already thought about that and thought about it sort of from like the judge's perspective of like, okay, this could be iffy. I don't know how true this is. But, it's just, you're reassuring them really that you have like legitimate information that you're not really making up on the fly. It just really builds your credibility overall and helps your presentation.
My signature move was I would always present the industry analysis slide. And what I would do is I would have a similar slide in the appendix that like related to it, but I would throw it right at the end. So I would be like, as you see, we have a graph over here talking about this aspect of McDonald's because that was our case. But if you look on Appendix X later, you'll see a lot more information. That built credibility. It made it look like we had a big fat appendix, which looked great. And it made us know, or made it look like we knew exactly what we were talking about. And that's what we owned it. Like we really owned it. And that was the best thing we could do. And we did it through our research.
Yeah, low key, fake it till you make it. Like it's not a bad strategy at all. And it really will work, especially if you have just enough like legitimate knowledge to make you, I don't know, you really can just propel yourself with that. It's really the best thing to do. Memorization, just first off, just avoid it. Don't use note cards. Don't memorize. It'll just cause so many problems. The first big problem is that everyone will know that you're memorizing it. Like, no offense, but you're not like a QVC, like sales pitch for like late night TV. Like, we know that the product's great. We know that, you know, everything. You don't have to like pretend like you're in an infomercial. You know what I mean? That's not actually helping you. The things that you can do to actually improve it are practicing out loud, making sure that your transitions and your continuity just flow. Also, if you make a mistake, don't worry. It's like totally okay. Like stuttering over, you know, a point that you're trying to go over, or losing your place, or literally like there was this one group that presented during Dean's case, and this one girl just started like laughing uncontrollably in the middle of her presentation because something funny happened. She lost her spot, whatever. It didn't take away. The team still won. They still literally won the competition. And it was just funny in the process. It doesn't mean that it's like game over. So like, don't let mistakes, you know, knock you down. You guys are okay. It's okay to not know what's going on 100% of the time, as long as you're able to, you know, rebound and bounce back and just focus on getting through the rest of the presentation. Memorization will make that 10 times harder though, because if you're relying on memorizing a certain string of words or whatever that conveys your point, and then you lose your spot, then you literally lose your entire thought and it's gone. So then you're screwed if that happens. So that's like another real big reason that memorization just is not the way to go with this.
One thing I really want to point out that Mason did was he couldn't find the word. And instead of like stuttering, he kept eye contact and he paused for a second. Doing that, number one, not only does it take away the negative of saying like or but having certain dramatic pauses can do really good things to your presentation. It could really enhance it. And it's how all the professionals speak. You'll never hear any kind of politician using like or They'll have these dramatic pauses, and a lot of times they're not even planned. So that's something that you should really try getting out of the habit of. For me, I would say and I would literally tell my friends, I'm like, in conversation, if I ever say it, pinch me or call me out for it. And it worked. As stupid as it sounds, as stupid as all of our tips are, they really work. And that's something we really want to convey.
Yeah, like guys, we know that, you know, this is like a freshman business class, and most of you probably won't even be consultants when you're older. These skills really are just kind of things that we have like, this is stuff that we've just had shoved down our throats since the moment that we've walked on Binghamton's campus. And so if we can save you guys multiple lectures and try and just give you what we actually think is important out of that, that's really our main goal today. So just to kind of, you know, make that clear.
And the last thing for this slide we want to focus on, we haven't been doing it because like we said, it's an informal presentation, but transitions are key. It establishes that your team has synergy. It looks really professional, and transition could be something as stupid as, I'm now going to pass it off to Mason to go into our next topic.
Yeah. Yeah. They're simple. They just really add a whole nother element to the presentation. So assuming the voice of the consultant, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, of course. So assuming the voice of a consultant is really important. We were talking before about how you are qualified to be here. You guys did your research. We're hoping at least you did your research. You know what you're talking about. And it's always important to remember that. But even more so, it's important to remember your role. Obviously, we're talking about these simulated cases, but in the scheme of it, even though we're literally just two sophomores on campus, when you're presenting to us, we work for the company. We've read the case, and even more so, if we're sticking with our roles, we are the company's executives. We know exactly what's happening. We don't need you to explain that there are issues with Subway or there are issues with Apple Music. We want you to explain what those issues are. We know that there are. Companies go to consultants in the first place because they recognize that there are things that can be improved. So number one, don't summarize what the company is. We are the company. We know that. And obviously that counts for every judge. But also you need to be really careful with your introductory terms, I guess. You have to introduce yourself as consultant. Don't say, hi, I'm Matt, I'm a consultant. But a big issue that I personally had was I would say we want you to do this, or we want you to do that. Number one, don't say you to a judge. Would you say you to a CEO? But on top of that, you also really want to focus on making sure that you're not including yourself as part of the company. I've seen so many teams do it. I've done it so many times. It's a really hard habit to get out of. And if I'm being dead honest, it won't kill you, but being able to kind of avoid that is going to be next level big. And it's going to just really separate your team from the rest of the pack. And that's something that I always want to emphasize. Or one other thing I want to emphasize is be respectful. Don't go over, because me and Mason have heard stories about people that just said your company sucks, or they've implied that. We're talking about Apple Music. This is a really successful company. Yes, they have flaws, but they know what they're doing. They know more than you consultants or you freshmen. So always make sure to be respectful, and always phrase it as not your company's trash for these reasons, but we identify a few areas that need improving. Here are our recommendations to do so. Be respectful. It looks a lot nicer and it sounds more professional.
Yeah, nothing to add on this one. This one's pretty straightforward. Just the big things are just like referring to the judges as the company, referring to yourselves as the consulting company. And yeah, there were a couple that were like, oh, like Subway serves terrible, like crappy food. And like, yeah, it's not far off from the truth, but like,
you can't tell them
you
that.
got to be a little nicer. These people are putting money in your wallet. So, you know. All right. So with the case delivery, and this is kind of just going off the last thing, coordinate your attire, stand in a straight line, and make the order of the line, like the order that you're speaking in. So if I'm going first, I'm at the left or the far right side, and then we're moving to the other way. You know, make sure you project, make sure people can hear you. With the masks, it's kind of difficult. I haven't really been to any other case, like in-person like presentations other than Dean's case, so I'm kind of interested to see how TechX will work with that many teams. But yeah, make sure that even though you have your mask on, you guys are speaking loudly, and then take your time to like actually think before you speak and respond to questions. It's really easy to like misunderstand what the judges are asking you. Make sure that you're answering the right question. Slow down, don't get ahead of yourself, and just kind of try and really absorb the information they're giving to you before you can like then put something back out. Some don'ts: don't fidget. This one isn't maybe as big. Like I personally kind of fidget a lot. Like you guys probably could have seen it if you're paying attention in the chair. Like I'm just swiveling around.
Going like this also, but don't do that in the actual
Try not to,
presentation.
especially if you're like standing up in front of a bunch of judges. Like maybe not be like twitching your leg or something.
Don't be a statue either. We're just pointing that out. We can't really describe it, but we all know that there is a middle ground.
You'll figure it out. Yeah. Don't stare at the slides. Try and, maybe take your quick little glance, know what's going on, and then roll from there. Be aggressive about your recommendations if you're putting them in your presentation. Don't be aggressive. Don't be aggressive.
Don't be pushy. What we mean is you're qualified, your recommendations are great, but if a judge starts questioning you, because you will get questions, don't be like, screw you, I'm right. Or don't take on that tone without him explicitly saying that.
Yeah. All this delivery really adds up, and it's not something that you'll just like wake up and be like perfect at. This is all part of the like practice. But if you can really try and just keep some of these big things in mind, like immediately you'll just see that it flows better, it sounds better, everything just works better. You know what I mean?
And one last thing, when Mason said stand in a straight line, speak in order, that's really important. But one thing I want to emphasize is that you don't want to be switching too much. That happens a lot, where you'll literally have a 25, slide deck, and you'll have 25 different transitions. There's such a thing as too much. It kind of ruins the flow. It ruins the continuity. What you really want to emphasize is working on groups. I'm going to, let's say, present recommendation 1, and we'll say the 3 slides beforehand. Then Mason will go recommendation 2 and recommendation 3, our next teammate, implementation timeline, and the next few slides. That way we're really getting what we want to say. We're speaking coherently, we're in order, but we're not going back and forth to the degree where it's hard for the judges to follow, because that does happen.
All right, so we're pretty much done here. This is most of our presentation. So we're not going to open up breakout rooms, but let's see if we have any brave souls that are willing to kind of stand up in front of everyone, not stand up, that are willing to unmute themselves in front of everyone and share a little bit about their favorite class.
We really want you guys to, or you guys meaning our 1 or 2 brave volunteers, because if not, me and Mason will do it. But I think you guys are getting sick and tired of hearing our voice. But one thing we really want to emphasize is focus on what we said. And another big thing, we want to use the same exact prompt because in a real presentation, you're going to be practicing. You're not going to be thrust on whatever the Friday is that the first round is. You're not going to not know what you're doing. You're going to have practice. And hopefully, if you guys actually did the activity, you'll be able to do it again. So any brave volunteers?
I got you.
Thank you, Sam.
Of course. All right. My name is Sam. I'm a freshman. This year, I'm taking CQS 111, which, if you don't know, is basically an Excel 101 class. And for somebody like me who didn't know that much Excel going in, did mostly work with Google Sheets. It was definitely it's definitely nice to start with such an introductory course, and I'm definitely liking it a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. By the way, CQS 111, I absolutely hated that class.
I liked it. Don't listen to Mason. It was great. I use those skills all the time.
Yeah, I still I didn't get a good takeaway from that class, but it's
Just-
all right. I'll have more time to learn in the future. So I hope that you're out competing me in the Excel skills already.
But just to point out a few things. So the biggest thing is timing. We gave you 30 seconds and I timed it to be around 25. That's perfect. What happened was, I believe in the finals, there was a team that, correct me if I'm wrong, they took like 7 or 8 minutes when we gave them 12. That looks really bad. The best thing you could do is get as close to the amount of time given without going over.
Yeah.
So you did an amazing job of that. You really, obviously, it wasn't scripted and we could tell, and you did a great job of actually contributing something. You informed us about the class, about what it is, a little bit more of your personal experiences. And obviously it's a stupid little activity, but there was a lot of good in that one presentation alone. And we're hoping you can extrapolate that so many other ways and hopefully in TACX specifically.
Yeah. All right, guys. It looks like a lot of people are leaving. So I think the best thing to do is just, if you guys have any questions, let us know, because I don't want to eat up any more of your guys' time.
And our emails are there.
Oh, yeah. Let me drop